Welcome to the NFL MVP Momentum Podcast. I'm Sam Holcroft and alongside Payton Thompson. Before we begin, don't forget to follow us on Twitter at Momentum MVP, follow our Facebook page at MVP Momentum Podcast, and check us out on YouTube at MVP Momentum Podcast. So today, we're going to give our top 10 games to watch this upcoming year. So process was kind of easy, kind of hard. We went through and we kind of picked out like our top games that we want to watch every week, and we came up with 25 games. And instead of doing a top 25 list, we decided let's do a top 10. So we found the 10, and then we just decided to rank them. So starting off at number 10, we have the Houston Texans and the Carolina Panthers. Now, why would we care about two teams that had sub 500 records? Well, it's obvious. They had the number 1 and the number 2 pick. They both went quarterbacks, and we're going to see two rookie quarterbacks go at it. And this is going to be in week, I had it written down, week 8. So halfway through the season. So even if the Texans decide to go with Case Keenum for those first few weeks, by this point, CJ Stroud should be the starting quarterback. Bryce Young should be the starting quarterback. It's just going to be nice to see these two young guys go at it, especially because some people, especially Payton, had CJ Stroud going number 1 to the Panthers. So, I think it's just going to be interesting to watch and see these rookies go at it, especially because there's really no huge expectations. Even though the Panthers are in a really easy division to win, I don't think that their expectation is to win the division. I think their expectation is to try to win 5-6 games, maybe. Hopefully that doesn't win the division. But I think it's just going to be fun to see these rookies go at it.
Yeah, 100%. I think I want to give a little bit of a prediction here as well. I think it'd be good to do that for each one of these, or at least kind of how we think the game script is going to go. But like you said, everything that you said I agree with as far as the quarterbacks going at it. These teams aren't going to be super exciting to watch, and leading up to this game, they're probably not going to be very good record teams either. But seeing that number 1 pick and that number 2 pick, especially because their quarterback's going at it, is going to be really fun to watch. But I think when you look at this game and how it's going to go, I think you definitely have to compare the teams, not only, the quarterbacks, but also, everything around them. And so including coaching as well. And so, something about it tells me that the Texans are going to come out of this one with a win. But I think Bryce Young is going to look like the better quarterback. And I think that's what most people probably believed, going into the draft. I think he's going to look like the far more polished quarterback. However, I do think Stroud is going to, hold his own, but I do think that Bryce Young is going to outshine him. But I think when it all, when the dust falls, I think the Texans are definitely going to win this one, because I think that their surrounding offense and defense is just going to come to play a little bit harder. As far as, defense and offense and, the running game, as well as, whatever the Panthers are going to be good at, I think they're going to be more of a passing offense. So I think that on the defensive side of the Texans they're going to have the advantage. And I think the Texans on offense are going to be able to do a little bit more than what the defense and the Panthers can hold up against.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I think that the Texans are out to make that turnaround. The Panthers are still probably a year or two away. Even though I do think Bryce Young will probably outshine CJ here, but I just think that the Texans had a really good offseason, kind of an offseason that they needed to start to turn their franchise around. So I think I could see that prediction being right.
Yeah, for sure. Is that too loud?
Did you hear that? That was pretty loud.
Yeah, I think he's moving on. But going on to our 9th spot here on our rankings, we have the Falcons at Saints, week 18, I believe it was. Yep. And I think what the biggest thing is about this matchup is just kind of the implications of where the season's going to be at for both of these teams and the division rivalry as far as winning the division as well. And it's interesting. We just talked about an NFC South team and the Panthers, and I think, for the most part, maybe I can't speak for, the media, but I think you and me specifically and people that we talk to and trust, I think we see these two teams being at the top of their game in the division at this point in the season. And being that it's a week 18 game, it can really decide who wins the division. And I think it's going to be a great game, just in general. I think Derek Carr is going to do his thing against this Falcons defense that, by this time should be pretty set in stone. But I think Derek Carr is going to have a good, division game against the Falcons. And I think the Falcons run game should be, just like how everyone expects it to be. I expect it to be pretty high scoring, hopefully no injuries pending. I just think it's going to be a really good game to see who deserves to win the NFC South. I don't have too much more to say about it besides I think it's going to be a very important game to the playoffs.
Yeah, definitely, especially considering the fact that this division wasn't decided until week 17 last year, and that's just because the Bucks fell apart, or not the Bucks, the Panthers fell apart when they were playing the Bucks. Because if the Panthers would have won that, things would have gotten real interesting between the Saints, Panthers, and Bucks, and then the Falcons. I don't think that they could have made it, but they could have if they would have beaten the Bucks like they did last year and played
Mm-hmm.
spoiler. It would have gotten real interesting. So that's why I really like division games being that last week of the season, because like sometimes those games can matter because who knows, maybe it comes down to the Falcons and the Panthers, and like
Right.
and they
Mm-hmm.
just didn't pick the right matchup. But like obviously the Saints can play spoiler, you know,
Right.
the Bucks can play spoiler, so it's always nice because like it was funny. It's like, why did the Lions need to beat the Packers last year? So the Packers didn't make the playoffs. They couldn't make the playoffs. So it was just a big ol' f you, like we're
Yeah.
beating you.
Yeah.
So
And it does mean something to the teams like that. I really do think it means something as far as them wanting to win and just culture wise. I definitely agree.
yeah. So moving on to number 8, we have the Lions and Vikings, and basically you could take everything that PT just said, and we can translate it into this. Except they're not playing Week 18; they're going to be playing Week 16. Yeah, Week 16. I think they actually do play Week 18, which is really weird that they
They
schedule.
might. Yeah.
Yeah, but I think this isn't going to come down to Week 18 like the NFC South. I think this game is going to be the deciding factor on who is going to win this division. Now, I hate to write off the Packers, but I think Jordan Love, he's going to have a decent season. Next year would probably be the year that the Packers could make that come up again. The Bears are still a few years away with Justin Fields, so it's coming down to these two teams. And the Lions have a pretty tough start to the season, in my opinion, especially starting at the Chiefs week 1. But the Vikings were 11-0 in one possession games last year. Is that sustainable? Like we're going to see like the Lions team who you can say might have stayed stagnant a little bit, and a Vikings team that you could say probably got worse. So it's really interesting with how this division can play out between these two teams. But I do expect, and I can't speak for you, but I expect the division to be solved by this point in the season with this game.
So you're saying that this game is going to be the deciding factor, or you think until this point, like at this game before it starts, they'll know who won the division or not
I think after this game.
after? Okay.
Yep.
Yeah. Honestly, man, I'm going to take the other approach. I think that by this game, they'll know who the division winner is going to be. And I'm going to stick with my hot take. I think it's going to be the Vikings that win this division and go deep into the playoffs. Um, but as far as this game goes, I do think it's going to be still a really good game. But, kind of opposing a view from the last game we talked about, I think this game is going to be much more defensive, and the better defensive team is going to win this game. Now, I do have the Lions winning this game, and it's going to be low scoring, but I think at this point, the Vikings are going to be kind of I don't want to say mentally checked out because they're going to want to win this game. But I think at this point they're kind of going to know, yeah, we won the division. Let's kind of, play our game. But if we lose, we lose. And, Dan Campbell's not going to have that. So he's going to come in there and he's going to make sure that they have a really rough offensive game and they look kind of nasty before they go into the playoffs. And so, yeah, I think it's going to be another hard fought year for the Lions. But just like you said, that starting record or that starting, 6, 7 matchups are going to be really tough for them. And, they're going to have to play more division rivals down the stretch. And so I do agree with you that these two teams are going to be 1 and 2 in the division. But I just think that the Vikings are going to have it because they're just a little bit older at this point. All right. And then moving on to our 7th game, we got the Dolphins at the Chiefs. And this game is pretty interesting because I think if you were to rank this game last year, I think it might have been a little bit higher based on existing, expectations. But I think when you look at these teams now, I think you're going to kind of get what you signed up for. You're going to get a high scoring game, hopefully, over under something like, I don't know, 75, somewhere in the mid 70s, right? I want to see both these teams put up 30 plus, minimum. But I think this is going to be, one of those AFC kind of championship style games where it comes down to the fourth quarter and, whatever team wants it more is going to have it. And I got to say, it's just really hard to bet against the Chiefs in that kind of scenario. And is this game, it is in Germany, right? So we got that
Correct.
going for it as well. So I think that adds a little bit of extra, novelty, I guess you could say. But yeah, what you're getting with these matchups. You're going to get high scoring. Defense is going to be lackluster. Hopefully, that's what I'm looking for. And at this point in the season, what week is this as well?
This one is week 9.
Week 9. So it'll be about middle of the season. So I don't think there's going to be too much writing on it, but it's going to be a great game nonetheless.
Yep, and you can still buy tickets for $470 if you want to go.
There you go.
So,
There you go.
yeah, like you said last year, like this would have been probably a top 3 game potentially with the
Mm-hmm.
Tyreek Hill leaving and then facing his former team. Um, and the fact that this is an international game is really interesting. And I think that, like you said, this could be like a AFC Championship type game where it's like the low 20s, mid 20s could be the final score, like a 27-24 kind of thing. I will say though, like as much as I want to say that this is going to be a high scoring game, I do feel like the Dolphins defense can match up, especially with the addition of Jalen Ramsey on the Chiefs offense. So if if there's any defense that the Chiefs haven't played for the last few years, I feel like this Dolphins defense could be a team to hold them pretty low. Um, but I mean, you always got that wild card factor with Travis Kelce. Who's going to guard him? That's a tough one.
Mm-hmm.
But you can't go against the Chiefs. But I think it's going to come down to Tua's play because I feel like if with Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle, um, I mean, he's going to be able to throw the ball, and we've seen him be able to do that. But is he going to be able to be healthy and
Right.
accurate enough to keep it up? And I could see the Dolphins winning this one, but like you, I got to go with the Chiefs.
Yep.
So next is the Eagles and Cowboys. Their second matchup of the season, which takes place on Week 14. It's the Sunday night game. Now, this one's a really interesting one because last year they faced twice. First time, Dak Prescott was hurt, and the Eagles won pretty handily, if I recall.
I believe so, yeah.
And then the second matchup, Jalen Hurts was injured, and the Cowboys won. And I felt like it was fairly handily, but it was also like a 2 possession game, if I remember right.
Mm-hmm.
So hopefully both quarterbacks are healthy, but if the Cowboys want any chance to win the division, this is a must-win game. Now, some people are expecting the Eagles to fall off or have not as good playoff success, hence Payton. Um, but I do feel like that this is also a proving point for the Eagles. Like, okay, Cowboys don't run this division anymore. We're that team. Like, we're not here to say we're not a 1 year wonder. Um, so the fact that this is within 1.5% of each other on the matchup predictor, I know that we're still. This is this game is going to happen in 5 months.
Yeah.
I think, yeah,
Mhm.
it's going to happen in 5 months. But the fact that it's 1.5% on the matchup predictor, that's kind of it's kind of funny.
Yeah, and I feel like, I mean, that's how it should be, though. With these teams, it's a division rival, kind of like we talked about. It's a very common thing in these lists because I think that matters in matchups a lot of the time. And I'm expecting this game to be really gritty. Kind of like I believe it was more of the second game when Dak returned. The second game was a little bit more chippy. And so, yeah, I think it's going to be a lot of run game, a lot of defense. I'm just expecting a lot of dirt, a lot of grit. And so I think it's going to be a really good game on that front. Um, and so, yeah, I don't think I have too much more to add on to it. I think for me, the division will go to the Eagles. I have them not going as far into the playoffs as they did last year, of course, but I still think that they're going to take the division. And like you said, if the Cowboys want a chance to win the division, this is a must win for them. And they're going to have to get over this huge mountain of a defense, and Dak's going to have to take it to that next level that people never thought he could. And up until this point, he hasn't. So, it's going to be a good test for that young defense, especially on that defensive front. Obviously, they got vets there, but um, you know, it's going to be a good test for them, but it's also going to be a good test for Dak and some of the offensive guys they got this last offseason because they also had a little bit of a makeover on offense as well. So, yeah, I'm excited to watch it because it's going to be a super gritty game and it will matter in the playoffs, hopefully.
And
So,
I'm
go
gonna have a
ahead.
quick goofy take about this game.
Okay.
One of these two teams will have Ezekiel Elliott playing on their team at the in this game. I don't know
In
which
this
team, but
game specifically.
in this game, one of these two teams will have Ezekiel Elliott. Whether it's because the Eagles want to move on from DeAndre Swift, or the Cowboys were like, you know what, we need two running back. Come on back here, Zeke.
What do you think is more likely? I would if I give it likeliness, I would give Cowboys 70, Eagles 30.
I'd probably go Eagles 52, Cowboys 48.
Wow. So you think the Eagles have a better chance to sign Zeke than the Cowboys have to re-sign?
I think so because
Interesting.
yeah, because I don't. There might be a little bit of bad blood between Zeke and the Cowboys too. So and
Hmm.
going to the Eagles, like, because like, is DeAndre Swift? Could DeAndre Swift really be better than Zeke right now? Maybe.
Maybe that's something that I would probably have to figure out in training camp or getting an eye test or whatever.
Exactly. But
You
I
know,
just a funny take that I needed to say.
heard. I mean, I can't say I hate the take, but it is a little bit goofy. But
Yeah.
But moving into our top five, these are our top five games of the NFL season. Started off at number five with Chiefs at Jets. It's going to be our first Jets appearance, as it should be. We're hopefully these two quarterbacks are going to go at it. All four quarters, not pending any injuries. What week is this? I
Week
believe it
4.
was four. Yeah, so it should be pretty early into the season, and the reason why I like that is because it'll kind of set the tone for both of these teams. I'm not exactly sure the teams leading up schedule until now, but number one, they're not starting off the season, so maybe week one, week two, teams don't really have it together as much. But it's also not going to be at the end of the season where injuries may be more prevalent, or teams have their standing solidified, so they're resting guys. It's going to be right at that point where you kind of have to make a statement in the conference. Are we this team that's going to be 4-0? Or are we going to be a team that's 2-2, or maybe even 1-3? So, yeah, I think it's going to make a big difference in kind of establishing who one of the top dogs are. Because if the Jets can come out of here with a win and they're looking, pretty good coming out, I think that could be really big to momentum. And we've seen what Aaron Rodgers can do with the momentum of the offense and the team in general when they get going. So, I definitely think it's going to be important for the Chiefs to kind of claim their territory. I mean, it's really their territory to lose. as far as the conference goes. But I do think that it'll make, kind of a difference in how people view the team as far as, short term and then going into the middle of the season at the end. So, but as far as the teams themselves, I really like both of these offenses. Of course, it's always hard to bet against the Chiefs. But having Aaron Rodgers on the Jets is definitely a huge upgrade from what anybody they had last year. So yeah, I think it should be a great game on offense. And then I do think the Jets probably have a little bit of a defensive edge, but against the Chiefs, I'm not really going to give them that. They kind of have to earn that first. So I think it's gonna be a great game, but I definitely like the idea of one of these teams being really confident and one of these teams kind of second guessing their moves in the offseason.
Yeah, definitely. So I think a good reason why we put this game up here is because one of these teams could potentially have a bad start to their season. So now, obviously, Kansas City only lost 3 games last year, but they are beatable. They are not. They are not a juggernaut. Their record says so, but they can be beat. Most of the time, it's the Chiefs don't make the last mistake. The other team does,
Mm-hmm.
and that's how they win.
Yep.
Hence, the Super Bowl. Eagles made the last mistake. They ended up losing. So, real fast, I'm going to tell you the Chiefs' first 3 games before this game.
Okay.
And I want you to say yes, no, or maybe if they can lose this game.
If they can possibly lose.
Yep. Either so
Okay.
yes, maybe, or no. So for the
Okay.
Chiefs, the Lions,
Maybe.
Jaguars,
Yes.
Bears.
No.
Okay. So that's 2 potential losses that the Chiefs could have. Chiefs could be 1-2 going into that game. Now let's talk about the Jets. The Bills,
Yes.
the Cowboys,
Yes.
the Patriots.
Maybe.
Yeah. So the Jets could be 0-3
Yeah.
potentially.
Right. And then
So
face an 0-4 deficit.
yeah. And here's the thing is I could see the Jets because they don't, the team last year that I'm thinking of didn't have as much hype as the Jets, but I could see their trajectory for their season go the same way, and that's my Raiders. Because the
Hmm.
Raiders had a okay first start of the season, but then in week 5 we faced the Chiefs, but we were 1-3,
Yeah.
and then we lost, and then we're 1-4, and now we got to dig ourselves out of a hole. It was just too much to amount to. So I think that this game is in our top 5 because if one of these 2 teams has a tough start, because both of those are kind of tougher beginnings of their season.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
mean, Chiefs a little bit easier, but if you already lost 2 games before this and you're going in 1-2, it's a must win, because if you're 1-3, especially because Chiefs have hopes of obviously claiming the conference again, and the Jets they probably have the most hype out of almost any AFC team this year, in my
And pressure,
opinion,
I would say, too.
and pressure, especially because
Hmm.
they have Aaron Rodgers, who any year could be his last year.
Right.
But I mean, and while we're talking about the Jets, let's talk about that Week 1 game that I kind of mentioned just a second
Yeah.
ago.
Yeah.
That which is number 4, the Bills and Jets. So this is going to be our first look at Aaron Rodgers in a Jets uniform versus Josh Allen, who has been one of the best quarterbacks not only in the AFC but in the NFL for the last few years. And we'll see how much Aaron can contest, because for the longest time he's like, just give me a receiving core and I can go to work. And I mean, he won 2 MVPs with, I would say, a below average receiving core. Whether he deserved those or not, that can be debated for forever, basically. Um, but yeah, it's a Monday night game, Week 1. It's going to be really interesting to watch. Probably going to be the most watched Monday night game in a while, I would assume, just because of all that hype and pressure that we just talked about
Yep.
with the Jets. Because right now, I mean, people are writing off the Dolphins a little bit because of Tua's one concussion away from never playing football again. So right now, I feel like the conversation is these two guys or these two teams fighting for the division. So I think it starts. One of these teams is going to get off to the right start, and the other one's going to have to start digging themselves out of a hole after this game.
Yeah, I think I don't really have too much to add on to what you said. And I really like everything you said about the game and why it makes sense to have him there. But one thing extra I want to say about the Bills in general, and Josh Allen specifically, is Josh Allen has to prove to people that he deserves to be in the top three, top four quarterback, conversation. And this is where it's going to start, because I don't think this defense is elite, but it's one of the better defenses in the NFL, and it's probably a top five defense in the AFC.
Probably
And
best
so
in the
with that,
division too.
yeah, well, best in the division easily. You could make the case they're top three at the conference. So with that being said, you know, yeah, Josh Allen is going to have to prove that he can keep the turnovers down. He's going to have to get his touchdown numbers back up. His yards are going to have to be there. Stephon Diggs is going to have to be clicking like he usually is. And I think they can do all those things, but you're starting in Buffalo, or you're starting in New York, and so with that being said, it's a little bit tougher of a matchup week one, and Josh Allen just has to prove that he can get off to a good start. Now on the flip side, if he has an amazing game against this great defense, it could do a lot for potential MVP honors later in the season. Um, but obviously that's a lot. That's pretty far down the road because this is week one, right? But I think it'd be a great way to start the season for them as far as confidence in their quarterback and media confidence in their quarterback, and just getting back on board with Josh Allen.
Yeah, definitely.
So with our third game, we're getting to the top three now. We're gonna have the 49ers and Eagles December 3rd, and this will be the NFC Championship rematch game. And I think honestly, man, I don't think there's too much to be said on this game besides big names, because during this game, there's going to be so many big names on offense on both sides of the ball and defense. Both these defenses are going to be locked and loaded. Hopefully, they're healthy by this point in the season. Crossing my fingers for the 49ers specifically because it seems like they always get hurt at this point of the season. And, it could really make a big difference on how teams or how people view these teams based on their conference and their conference standings. I think going into this point into the game, I think a lot of people are going to be high on the Eagles like they usually are. And same with the 49ers. I don't really see the 49ers losing too much momentum from last year. I think obviously they didn't want to go out in the conference championship. They wanted to get back to the Super Bowl, but I think everyone believes in the team that they have, and as long as their team can stay healthy, they're fine. We're talking Kittle, C-Mac, and Debo really on offense, and then defense or on offense and defensively. It's going to have to be a team effort to stay healthy. I don't think they've necessarily had one guy or the other that's super banged up all the time on their defense. It's kind of just been pieces here or there, but those three guys on offense are going to have to stay healthy. And, another big storyline that I haven't really touched up on here is the quarterback battle for San Francisco, because this is not a defense to be played with. You don't want to start, or you don't want to put, at this point, I guess whoever they have at quarterback is going to have those weeks prior to have the confidence to build up to this. But with that being said, this is a huge game and it's in Philadelphia. So, no matter who the quarterback is, whether it's Trey, Brock, or someone else, it's going to be a big game for them and a big test at this point of the season.
Yeah, and it's kind of unfortunate that this isn't a night game, but it's a big game. It's going to be the Fox or America's Game of the Week or whatever they do. So it's going to be a fun game to watch. I don't remember when we did our top 5 defensive trios. Was the Eagles your number one?
I think they're 1 or 2.
Gotcha. Well, the 49ers were my one. So, we just got some great defenses, and it's going to be it's really tough because I hope that we could see if Brock Purdy's healthy, and if everyone can be healthy, in a perfect world, we could see what could have been the NFC Championship last year. Like what would have
Yep.
happened if Brock didn't tear his UCL? So it's going to be real interesting. I do expect the Eagles, if they are to be the 1 seed in the NFC this year, I expect them to win this game. But at this point, we could see a totally different Eagles team. We could have a Super Bowl hangover. They could be like 6-5
Right.
going into this game too.
Yep.
So
Exactly.
like so we've seen when it happens to teams, when you get to the Super Bowl and you lose, something just it doesn't click anymore. Like look at the Carolina Panthers. They went to the Super Bowl in 2016, and then
Mhm.
I don't even think they won the division after that.
Yeah, they had a really bad fall off.
Yeah, so
And
and
yeah,
I'm not expecting that to happen by any means, but like losing a Super Bowl sometimes, especially with the way that they did, can really mess with the culture of a team too, because the Eagles had a good culture. Like how will that be going into training camp and stuff? Like, you can push your teammates and some of them will respect you for that, but sometimes if you push the wrong teammate, he's going to get pissed, a fight breaks out, and then culture is broken.
right. Yeah, it's very much a domino effect, and it's kind of interesting that you brought up the Panthers because I don't know if you remember, but when we watched the Super Bowl for our live party, I told you that this was giving me really 2016 Carolina Panthers vibes. And when you look at Cam Newton, and depending on who's listening to this, they're gonna really hate or like this comp. But whether you like it or not, Hurts and Cam Newton have similarities. They're a little bit different movers outside the pocket, and Cam Newton's a lot bigger. But when you look at the type of style of offense that they both ran, I think a lot of it too, man, is that teams just figure it out. I think after a whole year and even looking over the playoffs and tape and things like that, coaches are smart enough to figure out different ways to stop this kind of offense. And so, yeah, maybe it's a blend of that. Maybe it's a blend of culture, losing in the Super Bowl, etc. But yeah, like you said, I mean, either one of these teams, I feel like, could be on the opposite side of where they want to be.
Definitely. So we just talked about the NFC Championship. Number 2 is our AFC Championship rematch
Yeah.
between the Bengals and the Chiefs. And this is not only just last year's AFC Championship rematch, but it's also a previous year. They've faced each other twice in a row. They faced each other twice in the regular season the last 2 years too, and they have given some great games. I don't think a single one of those games have been a bad game to watch. Now, only reason that they're not number one is because of the game at number one. But you can, if I am working this day, I am going to be very disappointed. Not only because it's New Year's Eve, but
Yep.
because of this game, and it's going to be a Week 17 game, high stakes. Like this game, we're talking about like games that have, for the division at number 9 with the Lions and Vikings, or sorry, that was number 8, or number 9 with the Saints and Falcons. This game could determine number 1 seed in the AFC.
Yeah.
Like this it could come down to this one. Like this could be a must win for the Bengals just to even have a chance for the 1 seed, or the Chiefs could clinch with a win here. So I think that's why we have this at number 2. I mean, this is going to be, we always think that these games are going to be high scoring. I think only one game has amounted to cumulatively like over 75 points. Everything else has been under 50 for the most part. I think some maybe under 60.
Yeah.
But these are some great games. Not a lot of scoring, but enough to keep you interested. Um, and these two teams just match up really well together. And this is going to be the 5th time seeing them in the span of basically 2 years up to that point.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with everything you said about the game. I think, I mean, as far as the matchup goes, we've seen it before, and it's always a great game, and this is going to be another great game on New Year's Eve. But I kind of want to spin this another way. And I don't know if you necessarily saw this coming, but I think that the Bengals are going to win this game. Burrow is going to have a great game, and this is going to solidify his MVP campaign. Um, beating the Super Bowl champion, and then also going into the playoffs as possibly the number one conference team, I think is going to be huge for them, their confidence. And I think, yeah, they may have lost a couple pieces in free agency as far as Jesse Bates and a couple of other offensive pieces as well, Hayden Hurst, I believe. But I think, I think this team is finally at that age cumulatively where they have enough experience in high caliber, or I should say, high stakes experience where they're ready to take down a team like this. And I think, depending on, different variables as far as like, I mean, you could say this about every game, but I think health could also play a very big factor in this kind of game. Specifically on offense for both of these teams. If they have a key player or two out, it can make a big difference. But yeah, I'm making the prediction right now. This game is going to solidify Joe Burrow's first MVP.
Okay. So basically you're telling me that Burrowhead will officially become Burrowhead.
Something like that.
Okay, all right.
I don't know if it's going to formulate into playoff success. I'm not really willing to go that far yet, but I think Burrow is at that time where he's got the confidence and he has the players around him where he could do it. And even last year, I think without that one bad game that we're still talking about to this day, I think he would have had a lot better chances to be in the conversation. But I think this year he's going to take that next step, have his turnovers low. His stats are going to be good. They're going to be winning games. So yeah, I think it'll be great for them. But moving on to our number one game, it's kind of funny how it ended up like this. I don't know if you ranked it the same way as I ranked it like this, but I didn't mean for it to go NFC, AFC Championship, Super Bowl.
I didn't
But
mean to do
it
that
is,
either.
yeah, I don't know. It's kind of fitting though, but yeah, with these teams, man, there's gonna be all the juices are gonna be going. Both of these teams are gonna prove that that one game wasn't a fluke, and I think more so than any team, or I guess than the Chiefs, I think the Eagles are gonna want this one bad, man. And I don't know how much it really changes for them that it's in Kansas City. I think the Eagles are going to come to play. The defense is really going to want to get after Mahomes and do everything they can to make him pay for that Super Bowl. And hopefully that offense is a little bit more clicking. I know they were really aggressive in the Super Bowl and then it kind of bit them. And I don't think the approach is going to change much. I think they're going to be all gas, no brakes, especially because the stakes are a lot lower. I'm not saying this game won't matter because it definitely will to everyone involved in the playoffs. But I think that at this point, Nick Sirianni is just going to have even more confidence that he's seen this team before in the playoffs, and he's going to be able to make it work in the regular season. And as far as offense plus defense on both sides of the ball for both of these teams, it should be electric.
Yeah, and going back to what I said earlier, when talking about, I think it was the Dolphins Chiefs game. The the Chiefs are definitely beatable. If you look at their three playoff games last year, they won by a combined 13 points,
Right.
including three in the Super Bowl. Three in the Super Bowl, three in the conference championship, which both of those had a field goal in the last, I think, like 30 seconds, maybe, to take the lead. And then they beat the Jaguars by 7. So
Mm-hmm.
this is a definitely beatable team. And the Eagles, like I said in the Super Bowl, if we were to rank the top 10 players playing in the Super Bowl, the Eagles are probably going to have more than the Chiefs.
Right.
So I expect the Eagles to win this game, but are they going to try too hard? Are they going to try to make the big play when they don't need to? And, you know, the game ends on a drastic mistake, like maybe Jalen, like they're in field goal range to tie the game, but Jalen audibles because he sees something that he thinks he likes, but then it just falls right into the Kansas City trap, a pick, and then Kansas City just runs the clock out, game over. I can see something like that happening.
Yeah. Yeah. 100%. I mean, it would honestly surprise me if this wasn't a one score game at the end of the game. But yeah, I mean, it's interesting when you talk about how many close games they've won. I think something a lot of people don't realize about the NFL specifically a lot of the time, and just sports in general. Even when you look at maybe more so the NFL and the NBA, but it's not ever really the teams that win championships, the teams that are in the playoffs. It's not really about destroying teams. It's about winning on the margins. It's about doing the little things that win you the games by 1, 2, 3 points. Um, I mean, in the NBA specifically, it's about that game that's going to get you the extra 7 points, the touchdown, the extra 3 points, the field goal. It's not about always winning games by huge amounts. And so, doing the little things is what matters. And the Chiefs have just always been great at doing the little things. And, that's a culture thing, that's a coaching thing, and it's a leadership thing from, starting at the quarterback down to everybody else. And so, yeah, I think that's really the biggest thing when you look at the Chiefs, the Eagles, 49ers, these teams that we're putting in these high caliber games, in our opinion, is that they're going to make it good. They're going to make good games because they're going to be really tight. And both these teams, are going to be really good teams.
Definitely. And I mean, you can even see on the screen here, like look at the Eagles win margin in their last 5 games. You know, Jalen didn't play in this game. Jalen slightly played in this game, but they
Mm-hmm.
mostly had backups in the second half. They won by 6, beat the Giants by 31, beat the Niners by
Mm-hmm.
24, then they lose to the Chiefs by 3. The Chiefs beat the Broncos by 3, blow out the Raiders when they were starting a backup quarterback, beat the Jaguars by 7, Bengals 3, Eagles 3. So, like, win
Yeah.
margin, in the end of the day, it doesn't matter. Winning does.
Right.
You can
Exactly.
you can win. You can go 17-0 and have a 17 plus mine or score differential plus 17. You can win every game by 1 point. There could be one team that goes 1-16 and have a plus 50, you know? Like
Yeah. Yeah.
how you win by doesn't, or what you win by doesn't matter. How you win does.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
And vice versa. Because to be honest with you, when you said that, it kind of reminded me of some Falcons nightmares I had a couple years ago. Because I don't know the exact stat, but we were like 0-11 in like 3 point games. And if you could make, half of those games, you just get the extra field goal or the extra touchdown, your whole season is changed. And that goes with losing and winning. You have to be able to win the games when it comes down to winning. And, it's not about just beating the teams that you need to beat. You got to beat the good teams. And, there's a lot of good teams in the NFL.
exactly. Is there anything else you need to add?
Yeah.
All right, so I'm hoping I'm able to catch all of these games, but if not, I
Yeah.
might just have to set the DVR. Hopefully, we picked some good games. There might also be some other storylines that might happen. You never know who might get traded or what. I feel like all of that news should already be done, but in the
Mhm.
NFL and the world we live in, you never know. So,
Yep. 100%.
once again, don't forget to follow us on Twitter at Momentum MVP. Follow our Facebook page at MVP Momentum Podcast, and check us out on YouTube at MVP Momentum Podcast. I've been Sam Holcroft.
I've been Peyton Thompson.
Thanks for listening.